He was fighting the trial. He was going to court actually in a wheelchair. So right after he got shot and having death threats, he was also going to jail facing about 10 years in prison, but eventually he only got 1.5 years in prison. So during the time of Tupac being locked up, he signed a record deal with Death Row Records. Now Death Row Records at this time, this was the #1 rap record in the history on that time back in the day, internationally, domestically. They was the #1 rap record label. I think Death Row Records probably sold about $700 to $800 million worth of records. They had rap artists such as Snoop Dogg, they had Dr. Dre, they had the Lady of Rage, they had DJ Quick, the Dog Pound, etc. So Tupac called me and the rest of the Outlaws one day. He said, "I'm gonna sign a record deal with Death Row Records, and which is Suge Knight and Snoop Dogg, etc." So that's what he did. While he was in prison, he signed a record deal with Death Row Records, and he said, once I get released, we all gonna move to Los Angeles. So a few months later, after Tupac got released from prison, me, him, and the rest of the Outlaws, we flew to Los Angeles, and that's when he ended up signing the deal to Death Row Records. Now, for us coming from New Jersey, Los Angeles was a whole nother ball game for us, because in New Jersey and New York, back then, we didn't have gangs. We didn't have Bloods or Crips. In Los Angeles, this was an area, it was known that if you live in a certain area, even if you live in this community, even if you don't want to be a gang member, you automatically affiliate with this gang. So California, Los Angeles is divided by Bloods and Crips and Hispanic gangs. So for example, if it's an individual living in this neighborhood, even though he can be a person that loved going to school, he loved education, he never come outside the door, but once he leave his house, the people from the other gang know that he lives in that neighborhood, so he have to be affiliated with this gang. If you're not affiliated with this gang, then he have no protection. So this is how Los Angeles was rolling. Even to the point with the record labels. Even if a person wasn't a gangbanger, for example, Suge Knight wasn't a gangbanger, but he come from an area that's all Bloods. So eventually people will start saying, well, this record label, Death Row Records, this is affiliated with the Bloods. For example, look at the rapper Snoop Dogg. Even though Snoop Dogg, he's a rapper, he's not a gangbanger. But every time you see him, he wear all blue. And he might say he's a Crip because he come from a neighborhood of all Crips. So when we went to Death Row Records, it was mixed up between Bloods and Crips. You had some rappers that was affiliated with a gang that's affiliated with the Bloods, and Snoop Dogg and the Dog Pound, for example, was affiliated with the Crips. Me, Tupac, and the rest of the Outlaws, we from New Jersey, we not affiliated with no gangs. But eventually, what happened is the people from the outside looking in, they stare at us they pick you out. So what they do is they pay attention to Tupac and the Outlaws every move we do. So they want to see if we either affiliated with the Bloods or we affiliated with the Crips. Because eventually, if you sign to any record label on the West Coast, especially back then, you have to be affiliated with a gang. So what happened is rumors will go around that Tupac is affiliated with the Crips, Tupac was affiliated with the Bloods, etc. So being that he was very close with Suge, people started assuming that he was a Blood. So after coming to Death Row Records, the first thing that Tupac did is he went into the recording studio. He said, I just want to go to the recording studio and I want to make records. To the point, man, that he was doing about 3 or 4 songs a day. We was waking up in the studio, falling asleep in the studio. A lot of people think that a person like Tupac Shakur, that the first thing he want to do if he come out of jail is go party. But in fact, the first thing he wanted to do is go straight to the studio and work. And this is to the point right now that every year they come out with a new record for Tupac. This is why you got a lot of people, especially amongst the youth, they keep saying that he's alive because they don't understand how come he keep coming out with these records. But this is because he was a hard worker. Every day he went in the studio, knocked about 3 or 4 songs out for a whole year, so you can imagine how many songs he had. So after getting to Death Row Records, even to the point, man, with the Outlaws, we used to say, man, this is a boring guy. We say, Tupac, man, this dude is boring, man, to the point where we used to have to plot to leave or get away from him so that we can have fun. For example, man, it's times that we used to live in a house with him in the suburbs, Calabasas, California, and we'd get a phone call from a friend of ours, and they'd say, won't y'all come out? We having a party over here, won't y'all come through? And we'd go to Pop, and we'd go to Tupac, and we'd say, look, man, we want to go, we got invited, we want to leave. He was very paranoid. So at one time, I remember this incident, we wanted to leave, but it was like 11 o'clock at night. So he said, anybody that's calling you out of your house at 11 o'clock at night out here in California, especially if it's a female, she's trying to set y'all up. Because California is known that in street terms, that the females would call an individual, come see me, and when you get to go see her, it'd be a car full of dudes with a bunch of guns, and then they think you got some money or some type of rapper. The first thing they do is kidnap you, tie you up, etc. So Tupac was very paranoid, saying that anybody calling you outside in the night at 11 o'clock at night, trust me, they trying to set you up. So we said, man, forget this, man. This guy's, he's bored. All he want to do is work in the studio. We want to have fun, man. We 15, we 16 years old. So the first thing we did is said, when he fall asleep, we're going to sneak out of the house. So we left one of the outlaws, Castro. We said, we're going to sneak out the house, but when we call you, we want you to come down and open the door. So unfortunately, we snuck out of the house, but when we called to tell Castro that we coming back, it was Tupac who answered the phone. So when we got back in the house, we got in trouble. He was strict to the point that being with him was like almost being in the army. If we get caught doing something wrong, we might have to do a couple hundred push-ups, or sometimes he might take a vehicle from us. For this incident, when we got caught sneaking out of the house, he took the cars away from us, so we wasn't able to drive cars for a while, so we wasn't able to leave the house. Or sometimes if we do something very severe, he would send us back to Jersey, or send us back to our hometowns. In that case, when you go back to Jersey, and you look at, and you see Tupac and the rest of the outlaws on TV, and you sitting in Jersey in the middle of the hood, it was almost like tormenting. And for example, one time he sent Fatal Hussein back to New Jersey because he got caught going in the club with a gun. And it happened to be a police dude at the door, so Tupac got messed up and mad. How you gonna try to go in the club with a gun? They could have put the charge on me. I'm sending you back to Jersey. So Fatal, for example, went back to Jersey and he turned on the TV and he see us having a good time. It was torturing to him. But eventually Tupac invited him back to California. So basically, this guy was very disciplined. He wasn't what the people would think. People would think that he was just a knucklehead. That, for example, you got a lot of youngsters that listening to his music, and the first thing they do is everything they hear in the music. If you hear a rapper talking about, I'm going to get drunk, unfortunately, you got people that slave to the music, that they would get out of their house and go get drunk. You got people that if a rapper say, I'm going to do drive-by, you got individuals that want to go do a drive-by. So a lot of people don't know from the outside looking in that for the musician, this is a business for us. One of the reasons rappers put out these records and these music is so that we can get away from that life. You know what I mean? We want to get away from a lifestyle of drive-bys and alcohol and drinking and waking up hearing helicopters above our house. So what we do is put records out. We might talk about what's happening in the city, but we only put these out so that we can make money. But unfortunately, a lot of the youth, they listen to this and they really try to implement it. And Tupac, he would tell you from the beginning that he was a businessman. So basically, after coming to Death Row Records, Tupac eventually put out a record called All Eyes on Me that sold around 20 million records to this day. Me and the rest of the Outlaws performed about 7 or 8 songs on this record. And after he put this record out, coming from the hood, this was strange for me to be able to walk in the mall and you would see people literally start to cry. And people would start passing out and females are running after you. For me, this was very strange because I'm coming from the hood to see that the people in the mall is crying and screaming Tupac and this and this. It was very strange for me, you know what I mean? So I thank Allah that in an early age He put something in my heart that I always felt uncomfortable with fame. So I used to say, how can a person live like this? You can't even have dinner with your wife or your kids without somebody coming up, give me your autograph, or somebody coming up saying disrespectful words to you. So it was a very strange environment for me. So eventually, me and the rest of the Outlaws of Tupac, we continued to do music and we continued to go on tour. And Tupac purchased a house after he put out All Eyes on Me. He purchased a house in Malibu, California. This is a part of LA where most of the celebrities they reside in. It's basically it's on the ocean. It's beach house properties. And one day we were sitting and me and Tupac and the rest of the Outlaws, we used to at times just sit in the living room and we would just have conversations. And sometimes the conversations would be deep. It'd be talking about life and it'd be talking about death. And one time we was having a conversation, before this conversation, many a time the conversation with Tupac would always be about how he don't want to live anymore. And sometimes he was very serious about how times that he wanted to go in the car and in the garage and turn the car on and keep the garage closed so that he could die. Because he really was having a hard life. From day one, he had a hard life, so it was very hard for him when he got in the music industry. And he used to always talk about how he don't want to die, even to the point he used to reflect in his music. And if you listen to his music, he was always talking about how he don't want to live anymore, how he see death around the corner, how he don't want to die, how he used to always, how he want to die. He used to always be like this, even with outside of the music, he used to always talk about how he don't want to live anymore. But this time we was having a conversation, and he just purchased a house in Malibu, California on the beach, and I think he just bought a Rolls Royce.